All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Inside in Tennis podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Michals. This podcast is a part of the Believe Network and available on all your podcast platforms as we are into the off season. Good time of year. Thanksgiving coming up and 2025 in the rear view. A lot to discuss, a lot to recap with a friend of the show. It's been a minute since I've had him on, but he was the British number one. He was the British Davis Cup captain. And, he's also been known to, as told on this show, play tennis in the park with Bjorn Borg. So we love the stories he comes on and tells us. It's John Lloyd welcoming back to the show. John, always a blast to have you on. Thanks for making time to do the podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks. Always nice to chat with you.
Yeah. First off, how are things going down in? You're still in Florida. How are things going? I know you got the warm weather, which everybody in this country envies this time of year when it's cold enough and you get to still play tennis outside. And we were talking before you started that my friend Brett Connors, Jimmy Connors' son, said his dad was down there and you guys were hitting. So everybody kind of envies the Florida climate this time of year.
Oh yeah, well it's the weather has just been ridiculous. The last few weeks has been incredible, and it's I kind of pinch myself sometimes to know where I am because I live in a nice gated community where they've got a great golf course, and the tennis courts are pretty. As long as you don't go early in the morning, they're pretty free, and I play almost every day, and I played with Jimmy when he came in, and it was so funny because he's still so competitive, and he gets on the back of the court, and he doesn't move as well now. He's had a few problems with his hips, but he just doesn't miss. And you literally wear the first tennis ball out, within 5 minutes because he just doesn't miss. And if he misses a ball, he gets so mad, and and he also expects you not to. So the pressure on you is immense when you play with him. But it's the greatest workout. I only wish, looking back at it, I wish I'd hung around with him when I was actually playing. So we didn't till sort of the latter part, and because he was in a different group and I was, and because he elevates your game, and he would have done if I'd have been playing with him when I was young, because his workouts are so intense. He plays it like it's the semi-finals of Wimbledon when he goes out on the practice court, and the intensity is amazing, and he still hasn't lost it now. It's fabulous to watch.
Yeah, I was thinking about this too because it's a great segue, and it's what separates those all-time Hall of Fame great players. Did you happen to see, it came out yesterday, the Rafael Nadal interview that he gave as one of the first interviews, and he basically said, I still hit around. He hit with Joao at his academy, and he made the joke like, as long as I don't have to run, we can hit a little bit, which is, retired life. But he did address, and Rafa's always been pretty transparent, it's going to be hard for him to find something to replace what tennis got out of the competitive juices. The adrenaline doesn't go away, but you can't be a pro athlete your whole life. So I thought it was very open. And this is, a 22-time major champion saying, I'm going to be on a journey to try to find something to replace tennis for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I've always thought that it's one of those things that obviously someone like Rafa and the top echelon of the game, financially they're in a position where they never have to work again. But sometimes that's not the best thing, because let's face it, the tennis career, mid-30s, maybe a little bit longer these days, but generally you've got another 60 years left, hopefully, on this planet, and you're financially in a position where you don't have to ever work again. And you've been in this lifestyle where, it's been very sort of almost programmed. You get up, you do your workouts, you eat properly, you train for weeks, then you play these big matches, and then you recharge, and it goes on and on. You never think there's ever going to be an ending to it, and all of a sudden you stop, and then it's like, how do you replace that adrenaline rush that you get from playing a sport? It's not easy for some, and some players have struggled. If you're not as fortunate in the financial sense, then you've got no choice and you have to work.
Right.
And obviously there's many different things that tennis can bring you: broadcasting, coaching, so on and so on. So in that way, maybe for the sort of lesser ranked players, it's an easier thing to do when you stop. But for someone who's made all that money and in their 30s, and you've got another 6, how do you replace it? Funny enough, just last week actually, I do some coaching at the Breakers, and Roger Federer was in town, and he was doing an appearance, not a paid appearance, but something to do with one of the companies he's involved with, and they had a big corporate event, and he did a couple of speaking engagements. He didn't play, but he was here, and he does a lot. He's like an ambassador for so many different companies. Now, does he get the same feeling that he did when he was on the court? I don't think you can replace it that much, but he's got a purpose, and I think he's really enjoying himself, and I'm sure Rafa will as well.
Yeah.
And he's going to keep working on his golf handicap too. That's the thing that they both seem to be wanting to do.
Yeah, I did see Roger say the same thing, or similar things, where it took him some time. Like the first year he's missing it, now he's more at peace as you get away from it. But yeah, that's a great point you bring up. Why we wonder on the outside, why are players that are so financially secure and accomplished, why are they still involved in the game coaching? We ask on the outside, right? Why would they put themselves, through the daily grind? But the answer could be as simple as they need something to replace what it was like, and that's the closest thing. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
It's interesting too, and I wanted to ask before we segue on, like you mentioned, like how it's just part of your daily routine. It's all you've really worked for and done. Did you have any, did you have a hard time, John, with rituals and routines the first couple of years after retiring, where you're just programmed like this time of year means this, or whenever I do a certain action, that means this is coming, have to kind of unlearn certain things?
Well, yes and no. There were a few things, but I was fortunate in a way that I didn't really ever sort of go cold turkey, because when I stopped, I still played a little bit in team tennis, and then I played in the seniors, which was over 35. So in those days, so I went straight into playing senior tennis, which is obviously not the same as the pro tour, but it's the same rituals, it's the same training. You're just not doing it as hard.
Right.
So I never really got out of it, and then went into broadcasting, and then Davis Cup, and so. So I never really got out of it, but I must say, I do have a little laugh sometimes when I see some of the top players. Well, not just necessarily the top players, and they talk about when they're coming to the end of their career, and they always say, not always, but most of the time, oh, I can't wait till I don't have to get my suitcase packed. I don't have to get on the plane. I can be home. And I look at it and I go, nah, sorry, that's not going to happen. You'll feel that way for about 6 months, maybe. You may be lying on the beach a bit, and then trust me, you will want to be out on the road again. It's in your blood, and once you do that, you get antsy for it, and you do miss it. There's no question about it. You just got to fill it the best way you can.
It's going to be tough for some of these players, right? That gave so much of themselves. We'll see where Rafa, where others go, and when the transition, the time period now, players retiring, and the train moves on, as you well know. Well, 2025 is in the books. We have the Davis Cup, which we'll get to, but the season, a lengthy one, to say the least, is finally in the books, John. And we're standing where we were last year, right? A duopoly at the top. Really, what we have is the same two guys dominating the sport on the men's side, Alcaraz and Sinner. And, they've separated themselves from the field. We talked a lot on this show about how number 3 is so far away from number 2. That's how much they've separated themselves. But the question too, John, is there an end in sight? And right now on the surface, it doesn't look like in the short term anyone can challenge these guys. That's what Sinner and Alcaraz have done. What's your perspective been watching these two men just elevate their games and right now leave the rest of the competition in the dust?
Yeah, well, it's a magnificent sight, isn't it, watching those two, because they are in a different league to everybody else at the moment. I haven't seen it like this actually for a long time, where two players, we've had 3s and 4s, but even when the two best players have been up there, you always sort of thought there could be upsets with the 3 and 4 and 5 on a hot day, could maybe, beat them in a slam, whatever. But at the moment, it really doesn't look like anybody's there to challenge them. I personally, obviously you can't prove it, but I do think right now the top 10 is the weakest top 10 that it's been in many, many years. And I'm not going to go down the names. And if you obviously, you've got the big 2 and you've got Zverev at 3, I'll just say a couple of names because I'm not going to insult them or anything. But you've got Zverev at number 3, who's obviously a fantastic player, but has not won a slam. And then you've still got Novak, but he's obviously past his best. But after that, and I'm no disrespect with all these players, are damn good players, don't get me wrong. But I do think that even though the depth of tennis is getting better and better on the Pro Tour every year, I don't believe the quality in the top 10 is as good as it's been. I think this year and last year, I think it's been the weakest it's been for a while now.
Well, yeah, and it's funny, we were discussing beforehand, too, the Alex Delgopolov, Ukrainian player, was tweeted similar sentiments, like comparing the big three's consistency to Alcaraz Sinner, that point remains to be seen. But the other points in his tweet online, he said, yeah, he thinks the depth of the game, like you were saying, if you're talking like top 100, top 50, it's never
Yes.
been better level. And
No.
I agree with that. We saw it in Shanghai when
Yeah.
Vatshot wins and plays elite tennis. But yeah, the question and something to back up what you said, John, is if you look at, I always look at the ATP points total for the race and getting into the finals, objectively speaking, was as low of a point total to get into the top 8 as we've
Yeah.
seen. So that also speaks to two guys just so far ahead that nobody else is winning events. And you have Novak Djokovic, who's just finished the oldest player ever to finish top 4 in the world on the ATP side. It's going to be tough. I don't know if it's, do you think it's consistency? Is it just the fact that in these best of 5, it's even greater? Like, what is it that separates? I know there's so much, but what's one thing that just stands out about what Sinner and Alcaraz are doing and why players can't hold up?
Well, it's just their ability to play at such a high level for hours and hours on end, especially when you get into slams where it's best of 5. It's a slightly different matter when it's the Masters series, but over 3 to 4 hours, the other players yet have not found a way where they can keep that consistency, that level up as long as these two. What they do, Alcaraz and Sinner, is that their high level is so consistent. It stays up for so long over that 4-hour period that to actually get through them, you've almost got to knock them off in 3 straight sets, which is very difficult to put it mildly, because once you get entrenched in over 2.5 hours, 3 hours, they're brutal. I'm a little bit concerned about next year. I always think that someone's going to come through and sort of challenge. But at the moment, I look at the slams because that's our real bread and butter of our sport, even though there are the great tournaments. And I look at it and I think if one of them, at one of the majors, which will happen at some stage, injuries or you get a day where someone plays lights out and they're not quite at their best, you're going to have such a weak half of the draw in terms of name-wise, in terms of you almost feel like if one of those loses, then the tournament, you might as well give it to the other one almost right away. And obviously, the slams, you want it to be competitive all the way through. And obviously there are a lot of very good players, but these two have just separated themselves. And it's amazing to watch how great they are.
It's a good point too. You can look historically, even as recently as the big 3, right? Rafa was coming up with Fed. He was getting close. Djokovic at the end of 07 made a final of the U.S. Open. We don't really see that now. Injury luck is a part of it. The 2 players that had been talked about the most for potential in 25 were Jack Draper and Ben Shelton. Both kind of Shelton at the end of the year, but Draper was just snake bitten with injuries. I also do think, John, it's a point that needs to be made. The big 2, I'll call them, and Sinner and Alcaraz, they were smart about their schedule this year. Sinner had the suspension, but was still selective. Alcaraz admittedly said before the U.S. Open he skipped Canada to take a training block. We're going to get into the schedule being as long as it is, and with these 2-week Masters, that's an unfortunate reality, right? The best players have that luxury, but taking time off, skipping some tournaments to prioritize slams did wonders for both of these guys.
Well, there's no question when you're in the position that they're in, they can obviously financially pick and choose where they play. And obviously, you've got certain commitments you have to make. But a lot of the other guys, it's a way to make a tremendous amount of money. And for them to turn down events, it's difficult for them in their mind to do so. But for the two guys at the top, financially, they're in a position that no one else is. And as you said, they can absolutely tailor-make their schedule to peak at those 4 slams. And we can see so far the results of them doing so. They always look so well rested, don't they, when they come into those tournaments? It's amazing. Whereas, look at De Minaur. Even at Wimbledon this year, he said he was tired at Wimbledon. And it wasn't even halfway through the circuit, hardly. You're never going to hear the top 2 say that,
So someone that's been around the game as long as you have, and we've had discussions about the schedule for so long, and it seems like it's ramping up, more voices are being out there. What's your analysis of the schedule? If it is too long, if there's certain reasons and certain things you change, how big of an issue is this, and what ultimately, if anything, needs to be done?
Well, I think it's a huge issue, and I've listened to a lot of people and talk about the different events, and then people say, well, I have no sympathy because they play all these exhibitions and so on, which is true, they do. But you see, for me, I think, and probably no one else is going to agree with me, but I believe a lot of this comes down from the slams being best of 5 sets. For me, I've always I thought in the last few years the way the game has just elevated to different levels, the physicality and and just the things that go into making these players play the way they do. When you look at it logically, our schedule is so bad, really. I mean, you've got players now are now having a rest time. Finally, the top ones. Okay, they've just finished the Masters. Some of them still play Davis Cup, not the top ones. We can go into that later on.
Yeah.
But the events have literally just finished. So realistically, how long do they have now to sit around and totally chill out? Not long, because they've got to then get ready for the start of next year, and within weeks they've got a slam.
Dude, I'll let you. I want to just bring that up because it's a huge point. There's no other sport like this where the off season's so short, and then you have a major, you have a tentpole event right away. Every other season, you're easing into a regular season. Even golf, which has the Masters, you have a couple months to play. It makes tennis in a league of its own.
It's insane. But here's the other thing: you have to prepare physically for best of 5. That's the key. If the slams were, as I've been saying for years, would revert to 2 out of 3, it's a different preparation for that. You still have to be in shape. But when you're preparing for a slam, your training regime is tougher. It's longer because you've got to prepare for possibly 7 matches that are going to go 4 hours plus. And these days, the way these players play, their matches are so physically exhausting. So you've got this. You come out of a rest period, not very long before you have to start doing something. And then all of a sudden you're building up to go right into a major where you've got to train for these ridiculously long matches that can go on forever. Plus, with the way the schedule works, you could be playing matches till 3 o'clock in the morning, which is also the most ridiculous thing our sport has. In 3 out of the 4 slams, you've now got evening matches. Wimbledon is the only one that doesn't because they have to stop by 11. You've got this ridiculous scenario where people can be playing to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. It's ludicrous what that takes out on your body, as well as it being a pain in the butt for spectators and TV viewing as well. So you've got this big slam that you work up to. So you finish that. So then you kind of taper down a bit, but not for too long, because then you've got the Masters Series. Then you've got 2 big ones come up pretty soon, back to back, with Indian Wells and Miami.
Never end.
That is just, again, physically ridiculously demanding when you've got back-to-backs. And then you go further on in the year, then you've got to train. Again, you've got to build up to get ready for the French, followed by Wimbledon, so that you can't taper off. Your training level has got to keep up to this extreme level to play 5 sets. You get over Wimbledon, you've got a couple of weeks, then you've got to start training again to get ready for the 5 sets at the US Open. And I believe, I'm a big believer that while the slams remain best of 5 sets for the men, we're going to have more and more injuries, and we're going to have more pullouts, and this is going to happen. And we will get more pullouts in slams unless we change the format, in my opinion.
It almost seems like, and Alcaraz and Sinner have separated themselves, but in best of 5, it's not so much who the better tennis player is; it's who's in better shape or who is healthier or luckier at times too.
Look, I get whenever I post anything, I don't do much of it, but on Facebook, they talk about 5 sets and everything else, and I go up and said, look, this is ridiculous, because firstly, people always talk about the argument, and then some of my colleagues from my day, they go nuts at me and they disagree. Not all of them, but a lot of them say, oh, this is all about the person who goes through. It's like a war, who comes through the end and all. And I'm thinking to myself, is tennis about being a great tennis player or a marathon runner?
Well,
I mean, of course you have to be in great shape. You would have to be if you play best of 3 for 7 matches, the way these guys play now. But why is it that you have to have this ridiculous 4 or 5 hour matches? And when people talk about, but they always go, but you only remember the big matches, the 5 setters. The only reason you remember them all, of course, they're great matches in the finals because great players are playing them, but it's because they take part at the slams. Do you really believe that if the slams change tomorrow to best of 3 sets, do you really believe that the spectators would start moaning about it in a year or two and go, I missed the 5 hour matches and I missed those 3 hour matches? If it was done and you've got the starter's gun goes off In 5 sets, no one's saying that you coast. Of course you don't. But there's a tendency where you don't have to be right at your best at the start.
Yeah,
you
we've
play
seen
your
it.
way into matches. In best of three, there is no messing around.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the quality of tennis will go up. And again, people say, yeah, but then you've got more chance of upsets. Well, yes and no. Yes, you have a slight more chance. But if you look at the Masters series, when the players are fully fit and engaged, the top players still come through. They'll always come through because they're better players. It's as simple as that. I don't care if it was best of one set. The top players will come through.
Do you think there's a scenario where it could be to split the difference, like kind of the old Masters theory, where week one's best of three, or till you get to the final round, something like that?
Well, that is one of the better scenarios. I mean, I personally think it should be all the way through. But you see, again, a lot of people say, "Oh, but then you're going to miss these great matches." And I say to them, number one, a slam's a 2 weeks, and I commentate as well. And I guarantee you, the first week, there are some shocking matches, best of 5 set matches. I mean, they go on forever. The tennis is not particularly good, and it's boring as hell. So you always remember the end.
Yeah.
Well, the end, it's because you've got the great players in the world playing the end. So the semi-finals and finals are normally great matches because you got the cream of the crop playing. That's obvious that's going to happen. But and then they say, yeah, but then what would have happened with Sinner and Alcaraz if it had been best of 3 sets? Then Sinner would have won the match in 2 sets. And no, you can't. Not necessarily.
It's a
It's not
a
necessarily
scenario
because closing out a match at best of 3 sets mentally is a lot different than going 2 sets up in best of 5. It's a whole different mental attitude. And so, anyway, I'm a big believer in that. I believe that we're going to get more and more pullouts. And I do believe that maybe years down in the future, it won't be the slams that will change in terms of the people at the ITF, because, hey, why are they going to get rid of, they're making plenty of money. I think it'll be the players that will make the change.
In the unified front for that. I think there's a lot of truth there. The game is getting more physical, and I think there's an opportunity to maybe pull it back a little bit. But we'll see. If they made you commissioner for a day, that'd be what we would have. But it might not be in the future, near future. Well, we got more with John Lloyd here on the Inside In Tennis podcast, wrapping up the 2025 season, and it did wrap up with the Davis Cup, John, where Italy wins again, pulls off the hat trick. There's a couple ways to look at this. The level of play was great. Italy did not have their top 2 players, but no Sinner, no Musetti for different reasons. You had Matteo Berrettini, who's now 12-2 in the Davis Cup. You had Corbelli, and they beat Spain. They go through Belgium epically before that. John, the first thing that stands out to me is Italy is the standard for men's tennis right now, what they've built up, and this just seems like it's an extension of that. But what was your reaction to what we saw at the Davis Cup with Italy taking home the trophy for the 3rd straight year?
Well, to be honest, my reaction was sadness, to be honest. Not because Italy won it, but because of where the Davis Cup has come now. I mean, this to me, I've been saying this for years and years, that the Davis Cup has become a bit of a joke. And it's managed to get away with it because when it's being played at different countries, everybody's patriotic, so you still get the people coming to watch no matter what. But you cannot have a competition that's billed as the greatest team competition when you've got one player in the top 10 playing. You cannot fool the public. You can in Italy because they want to see their own country, and they're blessed with a lot of good players. But Musetti and Sinner did not play because of physical reasons. They basically said they wanted a rest and they wanted to prepare for next year. That to me is beyond belief. That's where Davis Cup has come.
Like
now.
It would never have happened in your era, like that.
It never would have happened. And it's not just the men; it's the women. Look at in the Billie Jean King Cup, which has also become a farce in that way. Emma Raducanu, Great Britain had a chance for the first time to possibly win it. She pulls out of it and says she wants to spend more time with the new coach and get ready for the next sea or ranking points. I'm like thinking, are you kidding me? When is it not a privilege to play for your country? I mean, where has the game gone to now where players are just saying, it's the end of the season. I mean, what it shows is that, and I've been saying this for years, Davis Cup needs to change and needs to change radically.
So,
and in my opinion, it should be every 4 years, but at best case scenario, it should be every 2 years. and so that you've got a chance for these players to actually put it down their list on their top priority list, and not just when it happens to be convenient in their schedule that then they'll play. There's something changed in the mentality of players now, and it's a very sad thing for me to see that, in my opinion, that Davis Cup now is way down. I know the emotional scenes were great in Italy and Berrettini, and it was wonderful and all that. But the bottom line is, you had one player in the top 10 playing it. That you can't fool the public for that long. I mean, it might have done well in Italy, and I haven't seen the viewing audiences from around the world. But you can't keep fooling the public when you're putting out an inferior product. It can't work.
Yeah, it is interesting, right? I'm with you on maybe doing it every other year. Ryder Cup is a comparison, right, where you can build it up and you could build your schedule in advance, and then and then the other year, maybe that's the other year is the Laver Cup year. I don't know that we need that every single year either. You could balance it out. I think it could be interesting, but yeah, it's been going back for a while. The issue you bring up, unfortunately, I think it predates the issue of getting rid of the old format, the home ties, because that's what a lot of us, my generation, grew up, and obviously going back, this centralized location, best of three format is something, but it's not what it used to be. It's not the home ties. No. It's not guys coming on this show like Jimmy Arias telling me about just the awful scenes in Panama where there's cheating left and right near riots. Like, that's kind of what we think of as the Davis Cup, and this is a little different. The level, even if there's not top 10, we talked about the depth of the games, but it's still high. But yeah, you do want the very best men and women in the Billie Jean King Cup, and unfortunately, it's hard to fault them, right? Like, they have a lot of other priorities, but until you get that buy-in, it's not going to be quite the same.
Well, I differ from you there, where you said that it's hard for me to fault it. I do fault them, and I'm not sure whether it's coming from, agents, parents, whatever, or just us as a sport that have not kind of got through to players that representing your country should be the best honor there is in tennis, and it's not. And so I do fault them for not playing, because for me, they haven't got their priorities right. I understand there's all these other tournaments, but these players are in a position. It's like anything else. The players are in a position where they can demand things now as a unit. And we've talked about some of the players. There's a bit of unrest about the slams not paying enough prize money at some of the events. The players have got, if they stick together on these things, they can cause change. And I believe at some stage they will. With like best of 5 sets in the men, I think that will come from the players because of injuries. Prize money is the same thing. Are we close to a boycott? I don't think that's going to happen yet. Yeah. But I do believe it was very interesting when they talked about the prize money situation, and Sabalenka was very much talking about how they need to talk. The slams need to sit down and be more cooperative with the players. And then, which I thought was very interesting, Jannik Sinner also got involved. And then when you've got the number one players, I know Sinner's number 2 now, but he's number 1 as well in some ways. But when you've got the top players that are going to bat for the lesser ranked players, that's a very good sign that there's unity in the unions, which for a while there, I don't think there was. So ITF, and they better watch it out here, because I'm sensing that there's a unity, and the players, without the players, you're done. And if they don't put out with more prize money, which I think they should do, there could be some problems in the future. We'll see.
Yeah, trying to explain to casual fans all the different governing bodies in tennis. It's a little hard, right? You got to go to this person. That's like someone that's new to tennis. All right, these are all there's a lot of bureaucracy, unfortunately, which doesn't seem to be a good thing.
Well, obviously, you've got the slams are run by the ITF, and they're the most powerful in that way. And then you've got obviously the ATP and the WTA that run the other tournaments, and the ITF, they do the Billie Jean King Cup and the Davis Cup. So they've got some really good sort of jewels in the crown. But the ATP and the WTA have got the sort of, I don't want to call it the bread and butter, because that's a little bit disrespectful, but they've got the rest of the circuit. So to try and get them all together to merge and to come up with the right things, it's very difficult. That's why tennis is a very difficult game to police in that way, because you've got all these fractions coming in, and it's a difficult thing to go. But as I say, I do believe the players are in a powerful position now, and there may be some more give and take from this than the slams that we've seen for a while coming up in the near future, in my opinion.
Well, I hope so, because I'm a fan of the Davis Cup. Even watching some of it, it was good to see the players that were there buy in. And Italy had, Berrettini's been one of my players. It's nice to see him back in the mix. So yeah,
I agree.
We'll see what happens. I did say too, it was kind of interesting with the last thing on the Davis Cup, John, was Spain, coached by David Ferrer.
Yeah.
I thought it was great because he didn't pick Fokina, and he just said, "Look, he hasn't been available, and you're in or you're out, and if you're not going to be fully in, I've got guys that might be ranked less than you that want to be here."
Right. That's exactly right. I mean, again, I go back to that line. When is it not a privilege to play for your country? I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. And unfortunately, it just doesn't seem to be a big deal for a lot of players. There are a lot of players that love it, and you could see the reaction that we just had, how much it meant to them. But the top guys, I don't know. It's become like an afterthought now for them, and the same in the Billie Jean King Cup. And whichever way you spin it, you can't fool the public forever when your product is not being supported by your top players. It will not work.
Well, we got a couple more things here on the Inside in Tennis podcast with John Lloyd as we're winding down the 2025 season. It was pretty cool, John, to see. I mean, no shocker, right? Roger Federer announced for the Tennis Hall of Fame. He'll go in with Mary Carrillo as a contributor, but we're getting to that point, right? This era of guys and girls are going to start going into the Hall of Fame. For Federer, it was a no-brainer, and how they announced and how they revealed to him. I thought the line of the introduction was Boris Becker saying, you're the greatest sportsman that tennis and maybe sports has seen, because you got people that weren't into tennis to start caring about tennis. And that's the breakthrough that a lot of people in this industry are chasing, but that is a powerful, that does more to me than any one accolade could ever do.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we always talk about we need crossover stars, and we've been blessed with so many of them in the recent years. And Roger Federer, to me, you talk about an ambassador of the sport. I mean, he's just a level above everybody. There's something about him. And talk about one of the nicest guys you ever meet. But there's something, the presence he has, and and it all goes to do with the way he was on the court as well, with his style of play that was just mesmerizing to watch. And I've done a lot of commentating in my time, and for me, he was by far the best person that I've ever commentated on, because I've said this many times, but I always knew in one of his matches, even if he was going to win easily, that he would always hit 3 or 4 shots that I would look at it and go, how the hell did he do that? I can't even imagine the imagination to go for it and then pull it off. And I once asked Paul Annacone, who coached him for a while, I just said to him, what was it like when you were standing there on the practice court with him? Because everybody in practice, I mean, obviously you work hard, but there are times in practice where you kind of let things go a bit and you may do a little bit of flashy stuff. I said to him, you must have seen some shots that defied imagination. And he said, well, if I'd have had a camera and videotaped all of them, I could have sold it for a bloody fortune of the best shots ever seen on earth. Back spinning balls, spinning backwards by like he had a lob wedge in his hand and this kind of stuff, and behind his back. And I mean, what a privilege. And I always thought it was a privilege to watch him play, to commentate on him. And he's just he's the ambassador. He's the GOAT, in my opinion, of the sport.
It's just the movement when I watch it back. He just floats out there. It's just there's something about how he moves on the court that's different than what we've ever seen.
Exactly. Totally agree.
It's going to be interesting, though, because we got some big names coming up. Serena's next year. You got big names coming down. But, I don't want to begrudge anybody that's, not going to get in or on the cusp that we don't maybe think should get in. But are there people on the cusp, John, that you think maybe should get in or deserve more consideration? Because it's always tough. You always have these debates, right? Who's a Hall of Famer, Hall of Very Good, not Hall of Fame? Like, is there anybody you think deserves more love?
Well, it's very difficult. I mean, I think Juan Del Potro, to be honest, was a bit unlucky not to get it this year. But I look back at sort of different sort of eras, and I look at some of the people that didn't get it, and you look at it and you go, "Wow, God, he had a hell of a good career." didn't maybe win a slam in singles, but won many doubles and was like a guy like Tom Ocker, as an example, who got to the finals in the US Open, lost to Arthur Ashe. He won numerous doubles, but was ranked in the top 5 in the world and won many tournaments, and he didn't get in. There's a lot of people that you look at it and you go, but it is the Hall of Fame, and obviously they want it to be the best of the best. But sometimes I look at it and I think, eesh. I mean, would Del Potro have got it if he hadn't been in the same year as Federer?
He's going to be a tough one. I love Delpo. When he was on, what he did at that U.S. Open against Federer and how he's done, had some success, which is better than most everybody else against the big three. He was able to win some matches. Yeah. Big four. I just think it's going to be tough without the longevity factor. One slam and without the longevity and all those injuries. I think he will get in, but I think he's going to have to wait, which is, how it works sometimes, right? Because that's the other thing, John. I mentioned those names. These next couple of years, it's going to be tough to, with all these people coming in.
It's going to be scary. Another one from the past, because to me, the Hall of Fame, I mean, obviously it's what you win. I totally get it. But it's also, I think, kind of what you've brought to the game in some ways. What was your... And in my era, Vitas Gerulaitis tragically passed away. He won one slam in the Australian Open, which wasn't as big as it is now, but he still won a slam. But he was in finals, and boy, what a charismatic! I mean, this guy was, a household name.
Can you tell us he was like the coolest guy? Like, can you verify that? I've heard it. Yeah, just the best.
Yeah, I remember him once. I'll never forget this. He was a big goer of Studio 54 in the days when Studio 54 was huge. I remember the first time he took me there, and there was a line around the block, and I said, "Well, we're not going to get in." He said, "Don't worry about it," and he just walked in because he was like, Vitas, and then he was at the place, and then I remember we didn't get out of there till like 5 o'clock in the morning or something ridiculous, and it was just starting to go light, and we got in his car, and he had a yellow Rolls-Royce Corniche convertible, and I remember just driving along in the streets of Manhattan. I'm thinking, this is not real. I'm trying with, this great tennis player. We've just been to Studio 54, and he's driving in a yellow convertible Corniche, and people are driving past and go, "Hey, Vitas!" There was a few people here and there on the street. They all knew this car, and they knew him. It was quite surreal.
That's awesome, and I do appreciate you telling us a PG Vitas story as well. That's good for the show. No, I'm with you. I think it's what you brought to the game, how you contributed to it. He was a good commentator too, so we'll see.
Yeah,
it's always interesting to see how the Hall of Fame votes go. So we'll monitor on. But congrats to Roger, congrats to Mary. Final things, John, with looking up already to next year, we've got some good storylines, and even the women's game, which we didn't mention. I thought their depth looked pretty good this year, and you've got some rivalries budding. I like when, Rybakina winning the tour finals was great. It's like, welcome back to the mix. And now for 2026, you had her to the slam race. It's going to be pretty cool.
Well, she played so well. You look at her and you think, I mean, she should win Wimbledon every year, the way she plays on grass. I mean, she's already won it once, but she's got the most perfect game for grass. And you could see how her improvement in the year, and Sabalenka was fantastic. Swiatek winning Wimbledon, I would have put a lot of money on that not happening. That was a big shock. Coco Gauff coming through. I mean, Pegula's had a very good year. The women's game actually is very strong right now. There is a lot of depth coming through there, and I think we're going to be. I think we're going to have quite a few different winners in the slams in the women's side. I don't see that happening in the men next year. I think we've certainly got at least one more year where the two fellas that we've been talking about are going to dominate. But I think the women, there could be a little bit of sharing on those slams. Yeah. I don't think there's going to be any one person dominating. I think there's going to be very close season for a number of top women going for the big prizes.
Yeah, Sabalenka is so tough. She's consistent. Like, you can beat her, but she's always in the semis and finals of every event.
Always.
It's incredible. It's incredible what she does. Yeah, the last thing I have for you, John, is breakout stars on the ATP. I'm with you. Like, the top two are probably going to dominate, but is there anyone in 26 on the men's side you think is going to level up, inch closer, or, come up a little bit as opposed to last year?
Well, I'm sort of, I'm going to be biased here, but I'm very hopeful with Jack Draper in the men's. And there's two reasons. Firstly, he was unlucky with injuries, but he but we could see what he was capable of. And secondly, and James Trotman, who's been with Jack for a number of years, who's fabulous, who's kind of taken a backroom step now, and is only going to sort of work with him a bit with the home. But he's very shrewd, picking up Jamie Delgado as his main coach now on the road, who's a very experienced coach. The physicality side has been a little bit of concern, but I think he has got stronger. He's been a bit unlucky in that way. But if he can remain free of the injuries, I think he could have a big year. I think he's potentially, there's something about him that's special. And I like the look of him big time for having a big year next year. I think for me, he's the one that I would pick. Ben Shelton, who you mentioned, you see, to me, he's one of these players that you just don't know if he's so young still, but you just don't know with the way he plays. Is he ever going to get tennis in terms of knowing what to do on the right points? He had a very good year this year and got better, but there's still such a rawness there. And you just wonder, how long will it take? It could happen. It could happen in the off season. Literally, it could sometimes happen in the off season. All of a sudden, the light bulb goes off, and you go, I've got to play more, percentage on this type of shot or whatever. With the weapons he's got in his game, for me, those are the two that I think could really make some inroads this year, or next year, should I say. I
completely agree. They've got weapons. The other guy to look at, because I think 2027 will be Fonseca's real breakthrough. I want to see what 26. Yeah. I think he's still young, obviously, and we don't want to rush this, but I think he's going to, keep it going. But we're staring down the barrel of another Sinner Alcaraz year in 26.
I like Mensik as well, by the way. I like Mensik as well. I think he's someone that could do well. But it's going to be tough to see anybody toppling those two in the slams. That's for sure. The way they have, boy, what a separation they've had. And I the first thing you look at it, you go, well, could their hunger slightly go away? And the answer to that is no, because they want to win slams. They won't publicly say it, although Alcaraz has kind of said it a bit, but they won't publicly say it. But they both want to be the best of all time. They want to hunt slams. That's that's in their DNA. They want to see how many they can win. They're going to go for titles and see how many they can amass before they end their career.
Can't wait to watch 2026. John Lloyd, this was a pleasure. Always is. Appreciate you taking time to come on the show. Your opinions are always welcome here, even if they're contrarian, even if they go against the grain. You're always welcome to speak your mind. We love it. But thanks so much for coming on the Inside in Tennis podcast. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure. Anytime.
That was John Lloyd. This was the Inside in Tennis podcast. We're available on all your podcast platforms. So whether you listen on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, or somewhere else, you can just search Inside in Tennis podcast. The show pops right up. Click that subscribe so every episode automatically downloads to your listening device, and leave a rating and a review if you'd be so kind. And you can find the video episodes on the YouTube channel at Mitch Michals as well, with our outstanding catalog of guests. So for John Lloyd, I'm Mitch Michals. We'll have more episodes down the pike coming up soon. This was the Inside in Tennis podcast. Thank you for watching or listening, and I'll talk to you soon.